How many of you guys have Easter traditions? Right? Like most of us, like you're here at church, so you probably have an Easter tradition. We had a tradition in my house. We had a couple. One, we would have presents. Am I right? Christmas 2.0. We would have presents. They'd be in our bed. We'd get that. Then we would get out of our room and we'd start looking for eggs. But first you would look for the basket. Anybody look for baskets? Like that's a weird tradition. Like not everybody does that. I thought it was normal. And so they would hide our basket. And me, listen, y'all, I'm good at a number of things. I'm terrible at finding things. Like horrible. Like I would get so mad. I would be looking for this thing. I'd look in the oven. I'd look in the cabinets. I'd look in the seal. I look everywhere. And I get so mad. I'd be like, why did you hide my basket more than others? And it'd be like they're on the counter. Because my parents learned, they're like, you're just not good at finding things. And that was our tradition, right? And so often, at least for me, growing up in a family that we didn't really talk about Jesus a whole lot, so often that was what Easter was for us. Like Easter was the tradition. Easter was the egg hunts, was the excitement, was the toys, was the dinner, was some of the family time. And I would ask you just to look inside yourself right now. And I want you to ask yourself, what do I believe Easter is about? Is it about those things? Or is it something else? If you have your Bibles, I want to invite you to open up to Luke chapter 23. Now, as you get there, I'm Josh. I'm the student pastor here. You met me. I was the guy who pied Christy Goldsmith in the face. Christy, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Luke 23. I heard I forgive you. I don't know if there was a don't in there, but I heard I forgive you, so I'm in. Luke 23, it says, then the whole assembly rose and led him off to Pilate. And so it's talking about, at this point, Jesus has been betrayed. At this point, Judas has kind of done his deal. He's been arrested, and now he's being carried off to a guy named Pilate. But Pilate wasn't just a normal guy. Pilate was the governor. Now, fun fact about the role of the governor is, see, the Pharisees, they kind of controlled the church. You guys know about the Pharisees, right? They're kind of the religious leaders. They were very confused on who Jesus was, and so they arrested him, but the catch is the Pharisees actually didn't have the power and authority required to execute somebody. And so they went to the guy who did. They went to Pilate. That would be really the only reason they would have gone to Pilate, was because they wanted to take care of Jesus. So they had, right out of the gate, we see that these men, they had an agenda. Like they had a plan. Like they were like, hey, I'm going to go to this guy. I'm going to make sure he hears this. He's put on trial because we want Jesus, for whatever he did, we believe that he should die. Fun fact about Pilate, Pilate was not a gentle dude. Like he was not known for being overly kind. In fact, he was known as a very cruel governor. And so they're like, hey, our chances are pretty good. Like we've got a plan, we've got him arrested already, we've got Jesus, we're going to put him on trial, and we're going to get this guy taken care of. Verse 2, it says, and they began to accuse him, because you don't just put somebody on trial and stay silent, right? Like you put them on trial and you start shouting your accusations, so they begin to accuse him, and they say, we have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Messiah, a king. And so there's a couple claims here that they're bringing up. First is Jesus is subverting the nation. You guys know what that means? It means he's undermining, right? He's trying to flip over the kingdom that they're living in. They're like, hey, he's trying to become king. They even mentioned it at the end, right? That he believes himself to be a king. And so they're like, hey, he's trying to do this. Now, spoiler though, this is actually exactly what Israel wanted the Messiah to do. Do you guys know that? Like, they thought the Messiah was going to come there and he was going to go ahead and free them because they were kind of slaves to Rome, second-class citizens at best. And so they were like, hey, like the Messiah is going to come as this warrior leader, and he's going to come and he's going to flip this off. He's going to subvert the nation, and he's going to make sure that we are freed from Rome, and we will be the Israel, the children of God, that we believe we deserve to be. And so this accusation is ironic because, one, Jesus didn't do it. Jesus was actually very, very peaceful in his time on earth. But at the same time, that's exactly what they wanted Jesus, if he was the Messiah, they wanted him to do. The second claim, so the first lie is that he subverted the nation. Second lie is that he opposed paying taxes to Caesar. Well, fun fact, Jesus actually paid taxes to Caesar. It's a crazy story. I think it's Matthew 17. There's like a fish involved. He has a coin in his mouth. It's wild. You just got to read it to believe it. But Jesus paid taxes. The third claim is that Jesus claimed to be the Messiah. That one, fun fact, is actually true, but it's only a bad thing if it's not true, right? Like, it's only bad if Jesus is like, hey, I'm the Messiah, and he's not the Messiah. That's the only reason it would be a reason to be on trial. And so right now, we've got these religious leaders putting Jesus on trial, playing two lies and a truth. You guys ever play two truths and a lie? They flipped it around, right? They're like, hey, we're going to play two lies and a truth. And we're going to take these lies and we're going to kind of present it to Pilate, hoping that we can get this man executed. They said, hey, we're going to take care of Jesus. Like Jesus, that Jesus guy, he's a problem. I think sometimes that's how we feel, right? We wouldn't say it. Anybody ever have Jesus get in the ways of their plan? Like, y'all, I wasn't supposed to be in Texas. I'm telling you right now, I wasn't supposed to be a pastor. I was supposed to be a rich lawyer. I was supposed to be wealthy. Jesus is like, there are your plans. They're gone, Josh. And like, he had something better and something incredible that I never knew that I would be called to. And he knew it before I even knew him. So often, and this is what the Pharisees are experiencing. They're like, man, Jesus has different plans than us. He's blowing up our plans. And we in our flesh, we push back against that, right? We're like, hey, I don't like that. I don't like what Jesus is doing. I don't want what he has. And at the same time, as disciples of Jesus who are following Jesus, being changed by Jesus, committed to the mission of Jesus, if that's who we are, then we need to deny ourselves and pick up our cross. Right? Deny ourselves, like say, hey, you know what? It's not about what I want. It's not even about what I desire. It's about what he desires for me, because what he desires is better. Well, how do we know that? Well, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. The point is, Jesus is on this trial, and all these accusations are thrown at this man. And at this point, when I read this for the first time, because I didn't grow up in like church. Like I didn't grow up like knowing all these stories. I didn't grow up reading the Gospels. So I was an adult when I read these for the first time. And when I read it for the first time, I was ready. I was like, these guys are about to get lawyered. Like, these guys are going to get owned by Jesus. Like, they're playing two lies and a truth. Like, Jesus is about to Thanos snap them. Like, they're going to turn to dust. He's going to take care of business. And then we get to this verse. This is Jesus' response. It says, Jesus replied, "You have said so." That's it. like they gave accusation after accusation after accusation. He's like, hey, you say that I am. That's what you say. That's your claim. That's what you think. Or that's what you say out loud. You might not even believe it, but that's what you're saying. He just says those few words and gave no other defense for himself. And I think that this is one of the coolest examples of who we should be. Like, have you ever had like someone call you out on something? And so you like puff up your chest? Like, you talking to me? Like, do you know who I am? I wanted to be a lawyer. Right? Like we puff up our chest. We're like, man, how could you even bring that up? But we're like, they bring up a sin issue that we like that sin. In fact, we like it so much we don't want to call it a sin. And they bring it up because they love us, right? Because that's what loving things are. If you're about to walk into a pit, I'm going to say, hey, there's a pit there. And we get mad. And we yell and we beat our chest as we fall into the same pit. And Jesus goes, hey, no. You want to know what a good leader does is, I'm not going to defend myself. You say that I am. You have said so. That's your claim. I don't need to defend myself to you. I bring up this whole conversation of two lies and the truth because there's been a theme here at the movement that I've noticed and that I've heard about and that I've seen of something called gossip. And gossip is when we're having conversations with other people without full knowledge, and even if we did have full knowledge, without it being really our business. And we love to have, it feels good, guys. I've gossiped before. Like, it feels good. Sin feels good sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you. And we get in these corners and we huddle together and we talk. And we're like, hey, do you hear what happened with this student? Like, what do you think about that? Yeah, it's terrible. And you guys don't really know fully what's going on, but you certainly have opinions that you're talking about. And you huddle together and it festers and it stews and it becomes something that it was never meant to be. That's what the Pharisees did. They got together and they had a plan and they gossiped and they spread it around because, gossip loves to infect other people, and they spread it and they spread it and they spread it until it was enough people to put this guy on trial, and it was enough people not just to have a trial but to condemn a man to death. And Jesus, even knowing what was about to happen, because he knew what was going to happen, said, I don't need to defend myself. And Jesus knew the end of the story. When we get to verse 44, we're going to jump ahead. At this point in 44, the trial has happened. He's been beaten. He's been stripped. He gave no defense for himself. He's been mocked. He's had people really just do disgusting things to him. He's carried a cross to the point where he couldn't carry it anymore, so a man named Simon came and helped him carry this cross up to the hill that he created so that he could die on it. And they placed him up on that cross. Verse 44, it says, it was about noon. And darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, for the sun stopped shining. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out with a loud voice, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. When he said this, he breathed his last. This was such a dark time that the sun was like, I just can't. I can't. Like this, I can't look at this. Like the thing that's supposed to bring us light and warmth is like, no, I'm done right now. Like I need a 3-hour break. Because I'm watching the man who created me. I'm watching Jesus die. And so the sun in the sky takes a break. And Jesus breathes his last breath, and he commits his soul to God. And I think what's beautiful, we didn't go through it, and I'm just going to stop here for a half a second, that while Jesus was up on that cross, he said a couple things. One of the things that he said is, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So not only did he not defend himself, but he prayed for them. I think that's beautiful because that's what we're called to do when we have people come at us, right? And we have that happen. When people say things that they shouldn't say, or maybe it's justified. Like maybe sometimes they come up to you and you did something, you messed up. And rather than holding a grudge against them, you say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna pray for them. I'm gonna forgive them. I'm not gonna defend myself. I'm gonna choose relationship. I'm gonna choose love. I'm gonna choose others. That's what Jesus did. And then he breathes his last breath and he dies. And this got me to thinking about the time between. Like, because there was between Friday and Sunday, there's a Saturday. And that Saturday for the disciples must have been awful. It must have been terrible. Like, because I was thinking about it, like, I don't know if you guys have ever lost a loved one. I've had my share of loss that I've gone through. And my least favorite day in my entire life is the next day. Because for me, it's that morning where like you wake up and it's just foggy enough that you have to realize that they're actually gone. And I just think about the disciples who had to wake up that next morning and realize that he's actually gone. The guy that they had dedicated their lives to, right? Like they spent the last 3 years where they left their homes. Some of them left their families. They left their jobs. They left everything that they knew to follow this man because he was the Messiah. And they did everything and they committed everything to him. And now he's gone. And they must have been wondering, like, this was our identity. We were fishermen before, then we were disciples, and now, like, are we fishermen again? Are we still disciples? Like, does it still count? And they have this wrestling over what their identity is. We even see them actually, they go back to fishing for the day. I bring that up because identity is a big struggle that we have. Like, it's a reason in 2 weeks we're going to be having a conversation about identity. Because I want you to know, and I want you to hear this in a loving way, of who you are. Not who you want to be, but who God created you to be. And this is exactly, the disciples must have been struggling through exactly that. Like, who are we? Like, Jesus is gone now. Who are we? That space between, that Saturday must have been awful. And then we get to Luke 24, verse 1. And this is where stuff starts to change. Like, this is where, like, it goes from, man, this is really bad, right? Because, like, at this point, it's not great stuff. We call it Good Friday, which it is. Hear me, Good Friday, when Jesus died, it is a Good Friday. It couldn't have felt good then. But it's good because Jesus modeled his love for us, that he loved us and he was good enough to die for us. Like, that's incredible. But if it ends there, y'all, that's not good news. There are lots of people who have died for a good cause. Like, lots of people have given their lives for other people. Like, people in the military, they do that all the time. Like, there are people who do, we need something else in order for him to be the Messiah, the Son of God, somebody worthy of us committing our entire lives to. We need something more than him just being good and loving. And we get to verse 1 in chapter 24. It says, on the first day of the week, Sunday, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body. The two men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside, skipped a verse. While they were wondering about this, suddenly two men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, why do you look for the living among the dead? And then there's those beautiful words, he is not here. He is risen. Like, he's not here anymore. Like, this is a tomb where dead things exist. It's not for the living. They're like, hey, these angels, they're like, hey, he's not here. He's out there. He's doing work. He's getting it done. Like, he's being Jesus. He's the Messiah. He is risen. Y'all, and I bring this up because when we talk about somebody worthy of us committing our lives to, you need two things. You need them to be good enough and loving enough to be able to die for us, to be willing to die for us. That's what Jesus did on the cross. And they also need to be strong enough to overcome the grave. Right? Like, that's what trust is based off of, right? Like, if I was talking about, if I was playing some sort of sport, right, I would probably, if they're like, hey, your life is on the line, you and somebody else needs to compete in this sport, I'd probably pick my twin brother over just about anybody else. And here's why. Because I know, one, that he loves me enough to give everything he has. And I also know that he's probably good enough to be able to compete on a really high level. He's strong enough, and he is good enough. And we need those two things together in order for us to trust God. Now, here's the catch, though. And this is the challenge I have for you guys. Is you want to know how I know that my brother is those things? Is because I know my brother. And some of us are struggling to trust Jesus with different areas of our lives, or maybe just in general. It's just like, man, I don't know if he's somebody that I want to actually commit my life to. We've all been there. Get to know him. Find out. Because here's the thing that I've learned in like really pressing in with who he is and what he has called me to be, is that he is two things. He is good enough and he is strong enough. Like, our God is loving and he is mighty. The fact that he died for me on the cross, and then the cross didn't win because he rose 3 days later. Like, that's the God that I serve. And that's who we get to serve and worship together. Would you guys pray with me? Jesus, you are good. I love that you are both good and strong. And that even in your strength, you choose not to defend yourself. You choose to die for us. I love that we don't deserve it. That you don't go, hey, you need to get your life right, and then I'll die for you, or you need to get it. No, you're just like, man, like, you're just like, I love you. I love that you love us, Lord. I love that you are trustworthy and good. And I pray over these students as we go out into our small groups. I just pray that we take the chance to get to know you and get to know your heart and see that you're trustworthy and see that you're good and see that you're mighty. God, thank you for Easter, this celebration that is fully about you. We love you. Amen.